Good morning. Thank you for joining me on my Facebook Live this morning. As always, um, let me know you're there. Send me some hearts, send me some likes. How about saying hello and telling me where you're from and telling me what kind of dog you have and maybe your favorite thing about your dog. Always fun to know that. Um, excuse me. So thank you for joining us on our Facebook Live this morning. As always, please feel free to ask questions in the comments. I usually just get to the questions at the end. I find that works better for me. If you are listening to the recording, I check back regularly, so please feel free to ask questions and I will get back to you. Okay, so today's topic is all about corrections. What are they? What is the purpose of a correction? What a correction isn't. Um, So in my dog training journey, I started dog training with my very first dog, who was an Akita named Yukon, in 1996. I went to a positive dog training school. That's what the vets told me. That's what the books told me. I'd read all the books. So to me, positive dog training at that time was using cookies to get what I wanted and keeping my dog happy all the time. And that's what I understood, and that's what I see a lot of my, students. They're like, "Oh, no, the dog's not happy. The dog has to be happy." So I see that a lot. So luckily, my dog, Yukon, was super friendly, so I never had to deal with aggression issues because then this would have become a much bigger problem. He loved every person, every dog, which was rare in an Akita, but nonetheless, he was a wonderful dog. So when I was holding a cookie, he was pretty good. Most of the time he could listen. He had a sit, not a whole lot of other skills. And eventually we started competing in competitive obedience. So companion dog training for the Canadian Kennel Club. And so his skills got a bit more, but they were still hard to get. And again, really good when I had a cookie in my hand, not so good when I didn't. But he still pulled like a truck, didn't come when called, and got yelled at a lot because I didn't know what else to do with him. When things all went wrong, yelling would calm him down. That rewarded me, so that's what I had used. So because I wasn't having enough success, I went to a school that did correction training. And the first couple of weeks, I was really impressed. I took a puppy who knew nothing, and within a couple of weeks, he was walking kind of in heel. Um, Listening to me, it seemed a little more and definitely calmer. So I was like, wow, this stuff really works. But then within a few months of correction training, I realized my happy go lucky puppy was gone and that the relationship we'd had, which was very fun, loving, we had a great time. He was a funny dog, like all puppies are. They do silly things. It was gone. He was better behaved. Like I said, he had heels, sort of. His cum was a bit better, but really, he wasn't great. Um, and in heel, he started lagging. So that means when they walk, instead of walking with their head next to your leg, basically, he started getting behind me. So, and he looked like he hated every minute of it. When I would walk in the ring, my old instructor would say, just before you go in the ring, you give them two swift corrections on the choke chain to tell them who's boss. And Yukon got to the point where the sight of the ring would make him totally go poopy. He'd totally be like, bleh. So no joy, hating every minute of it. He wasn't bad anymore. He wasn't that hilarious bad dog that I'm watching my current puppy do sometimes when I take her out, where she picks up a stick or a flower pot or whatever and does zoomies around my yard. And then she's just having so much fun. And yeah, there needs to be training, but you don't have to take away all the fun to get well behaved. And that's what I wanted. I saw it. Um, you got to appreciate their love for life and how much fun they're having. And when you're relaxed enough to laugh and enjoy it with them, it makes life so much better. It took me a long time to get here and to embrace their joy and appreciate when they're having a good time, and also appreciate that I can train them and don't have to micromanage everything. So Yukon did teach me a love for dog training, and he is why I became a dog trainer, because he started my lifelong search for knowledge on how to do it. In my gut, I knew correction was not the right way to do it. I needed something that worked better, that gave my dog information but didn't suck all the joy out. Um, I saw it. I saw other people, some dog trainers, some just regular people who had dogs, whose dogs listened to them, but still had that joy in their eyes. And these owners were relaxed and smiling, not worried, and not micromanaging. So, how did you go from not trying to control everything to get a better behaved dog to while still embracing that joy and fun? Um, as I think what happened is, as dog training embraced the world, as dog training became a much more positive place, at first we lost something. And maybe not everybody, but what I understood of it and what I studied for the first few years was we felt positive dog training meant the dog always had to be happy. And I still see that in lots of owners and in some training methods. Susan Garrett says it best: positive is not permissive. That means your dog has to understand what is acceptable and what isn't. It's not about keeping your dog happy. Happy means the dog is doing whatever he wants, whenever he wants. That might sound great in theory, but in real life, that is a dog who is very hard to live with. And again, some of this is going to depend on the breed. Some breeds are pretty laid back, so they're pretty easy to live with even without a whole lot of training. And some breeds, like I currently have a 4-month-old border collie, she needs some training. She needs to understand what her boundaries are so she starts to behave. Otherwise, she's a mess. She bites, she chases, she herds, yeah, it's not pretty. The dog has to understand what is and isn't allowed. The clearer that definition is for your dog, the more freedom you can give your dog because he understands the rules. The dog has to understand self-control. That's again going back to understanding what is and isn't allowed. And I find these positive trained dogs get really frustrated because in the need to not correct their dog and upset their dog, the owners become really frustrated, which therefore leads to dogs really frustrated. Okay, so where does this leave us? I want to reward my dog for doing what I want, for making the right choices. But I want to also give him the information when he makes the wrong choices so that he doesn't keep making those choices. And that is what a correction is. It's information that the choice the dog has picked at this time is not the correct one, not the one that earns reinforcement. So let's start with defining a correction. A correction to me is stopping a behavior so it doesn't continue to earn reinforcement. For example, you walk in your dining room and your dog is chewing your dining room your dog is chewing your dining room table leg. You walk over, take your puppy by the collar and move him. That would be the correction. You've stopped him from earning reinforcement from that table leg. But that is only part of the equation. And that's where I think a lot of people are falling apart. They stop their dog, but they don't give him what else he needs to do. Stopping him won't necessarily teach him what to do instead. This is where you have to earn the right to correct your dog. That means you've built value for the correct choice and your dog has made a mistake and picked the wrong choice, and you help him understand what the right choice is. So I'll give you an example. Let's say this is a 9-week-old puppy. You move the puppy, so he's 9 weeks old, so he can't have any reinforcement history. You move the puppy away from the table leg and you offer him a better option like a chewy or a stuffy or something that's dog appropriate. The onus is on us at that age to help them make the right choice because they don't have any reward history. Now, a few months later, by managing his environment, meaning he's in an X pen or crate or on a leash or with given the appropriate chew toys that he enjoys so doesn't really go off and do anything else, your dog has learned what is acceptable to chew. Not because just because you've managed from not allowing him to earn reinforcement from chewing your table leg. That's why I like an X pen. My dog is learning to chew what's available in the X pen and earn reinforcement from that because it's fun to chew. So therefore, he is not earning reinforcement for chewing my table leg. For this dog, I would remove this. So if I walked into the dining room and he's chewing my table leg, I would remove him from the table leg, move him 4 or 5 feet away, and let him go. I want to see what he's going to choose. If he goes back to the table leg, I would probably move him at least 1 more time, possibly 2, and see if he goes, oh yeah, sorry, I'm supposed to be chewing this. Um, if he rushes straight back to the table leg 3 times, then I'm going to make that table leg unavailable. That could mean move him to another room, put him in a crate. Just you got to make that table leg unavailable because he's like, once you've removed him a couple of times and they're going straight back, now it's a thing. You're going to let me go and I'm going to, now he's earning reinforcement every time for going to that table leg because he gets your attention. So you want to put a stop to that by putting him in a different room, moving him to a crate, something like that. And this is giving you information that he is not ready to make that choice. He may have to be managed for a couple of weeks. I get calls all the time. My dog's chewing stuff he's not supposed to be. Well, why is he getting those choices? Are those choices available to him where he's constantly picking the wrong choice? Instead, let's say you move him away from the table leg, you move him 4 or 5 feet away, or you could move him close to a toy, and then you let go. And he goes, oh, yeah, I was supposed to be chewing the toy. And he goes and chews the toy. Then you want to praise, wow, that was a really good choice. Because every time your dog chooses the toy over the table leg, that means a little whiles down the road, he's going to walk into the room and not even look at the table leg. He's going to go straight to his toy because that's what's earning him reinforcement. Don't get me wrong. They're still going to make mistakes. They're babies or even adult dogs. Let's face it, by the time they're 2 or 3, they're probably not chewing on your table leg. And if they are, they have a lot of reinforcement history for it. They're still going to make mistakes and you still have to supervise and you will still have to correct them, but you're just removing them. I want you to notice through this whole example, there was no yelling. I never said my dog's name. We get into the habit of Fido. Don't do that. You're starting to ruin your dog's name. So I never said my dog's name. There's no intimidation. There is no yelling bad dog. There's no yelling, just stopping and helping him redirect. So I'll give you an example in the human world to help you understand what I mean by all this. I equate a correction to the warning track on the highway. You are driving along and you see a deer in the field. You get distracted from the road as your brain starts to focus more on the deer. I find that happens even worse when the deer is hard to see. You kind of shift you start to look and all of a sudden you're like, and as soon as your brain starts doing this, your hands start to turn because that's what happens. You aren't being bad. Remember this, because this is what happens to dogs, right? Sometimes they get distracted. You're not being bad. You just got distracted. And then you hit the warning track and you're like, oh, yeah, I was driving. I remember now. And you go back to staying on the road. This is the perfect correction. The warning track never made you feel bad, never told you were bad, never told you were wrong, just went, hey, what are you doing? And you're like, oops, sorry. So you have enough reinforcement history for driving on the road that right away, as soon as you were reminded, you were like, oh, I know what I'm supposed to be doing. That was the perfect choice and the perfect correction. So again, I'm going to say this again. The purpose of correction is not to intimidate a dog. This is not how I train, and this is not how I feel anybody should train. Training is information. It's a constant, dog does this, this happens. It's a constant back and forth of information. The more you stay away from intimidation and suppression, the more you have that fun, happy, again, I said the word happy, but that comfortable dog, that content dog that wants to play with you, wants to interact with you, wants to be with you, but still learns to listen to what you say and behave amazing. The things my dogs can do now, the skills they have compared to what I had with my first dog are incredible, just following these rules. I cringe when I look at what correction training was. We used to scratch shake the dog. You used to be told, stare them in the eyes till they look away. That's all intimidation. And it was interesting. If you look at old competition obedience, there was a lot of shepherds, some golden retrievers. There was very few breeds that played because this type of training that correction type training just didn't work for some breeds. A lot of breeds, as soon as you push them that hard, we're like, you know what? Talk to the paw. And that was happening with my Akita, not known for being, the easiest going breed to work with. All this that correction training is based on fear. Fear we will lose control of the dog. Fear you're constantly told, um, don't let the dog be dominant. Okay, so I can hear the comments. Well, what if I stop my dog 100 times and my dog always goes back to that table leg? And then I'm going to remind you again, that means you haven't built enough reinforcement for the appropriate choice. Your dog's not doing it on purpose. I get it all the time. I hear it all the time. My dog knows he's supposed to do this, but he's choosing to do something else. Okay, what does that mean? If you've built value for the appropriate choice, whatever that is, then your dog would not make the wrong choice all the time. He would make the right choice. So if your dog's making the wrong choice, then there's more value for the wrong choice than the right choice. Yeah, so always remember that. I'm going to give you another example. Pulling on leash. So there are many tools available to stop your dog from pulling on leash, from prong collars to head halters to anti-pulling harnesses. And now people just put their dogs on regular harnesses. For most dogs, most of these pieces of equipment are all meant to give your dog pain or discomfort if they pull. For most dogs, I find they work for a while, and then the dog goes back to pulling. Granted, on some of these devices, the pulling is a lot less intense than it was on just a buckle collar. And dogs pulling on a buckle collar do an incredible amount of damage to their spine and trachea. My first dog, my Akita, pulled like a truck, and I did put him on a prong collar, and that made a huge difference. But before that, he had managed to do a lot of damage to his spine and needed to be adjusted by the chiropractor on a regular basis, or you could tell he was uncomfortable. The reason the pain and discomfort aren't working is you constantly allow the dog to be reinforced for pulling on leash. We all do it. It's impossible not to do it, which is why it is so hard to train walking on a loose leash. If your dog has to go to the bathroom and you allow him to pull to a bush, you've just rewarded pulling on leash. If you're almost home and as you hit the end of the driveway, your dog pulls to your front door and you let go so he can run to the front door, you've rewarded pulling on leash. You meet the neighbors who your dog loves. When you're walking down the street, your dog pulls towards them. You're allowing your dog to pull on leash. So the dog continues to pull even regardless of the correction because we're constantly reinforcing pulling on leash. Eventually the dog gets used to the pain and the discomfort, and that is why the pulling returns. And it takes them about 2 weeks to a month to get over the pain. Again, this will depend on breed. This will depend on drive. There's a lot of things that can change here. My Akita actually, as an older adult, like 2, 3 years old, really didn't pull on leash. And we went back to walking on a buckle collar. But this is the thing. He hadn't trained. He hadn't learned not to pull towards stuff he wanted. He just didn't want that much stuff. But if he saw something he really wanted, like his favorite person or his favorite dog, he would pull me really hard. But most of the time, being an Akita, they're relatively laid back and pretty aloof. So they were like, meh, I just walk down the street. I don't need to pull. So whenever you want to change a behavior, you have to create a different behavior to replace it. So with pulling on leash, there's a couple of things you can do. You can train your dog not to pull. If your dog has a serious pulling habit, you may always have to use some sort of correction, a piece of equipment, because you're constantly going to have to remind him because he's going to forget a lot. With what I do with my puppies is as soon as they start to pull, so Wicca's 4 months old, and she's already learned how to use her gentle leader, which is a head halter. As soon as they start to pull, I put them on some sort of head halter. This helps them not learn to pull while they learn to deal with their environment. Puppies are usually, confident puppies are very excited about the world. They love people, they love things, they love dogs, they love bushes, whatever. They love everything. Or you can get the shy puppy, where we're talking the happy, wants to go everywhere puppy. So they're going to pull because they don't understand self-control yet. The head halter allows you to go out in public without allowing them to learn how to pull. So that's why I put a head halter on my dog as soon as they start to pull. As they get older and have skills and understanding of what self-control is, at approximately a year and a half to two, I start to take away the head halter. It it is clipped on the handle of my leash for probably about 6 months. So if at any time they're in an environment they can't deal with, I put it back on. Even my adult dogs, when I go to visit my sister who lives in the city and we go for long walks, I'll put them on head halters because I don't want to think about it. I just want to walk. So I put them on head halters so I don't have to worry about them thinking of pulling, because pulling is definitely a learned behavior. The more they do it, the worse they get. Um, Now, to teach my puppies to start to deal with the environment, I do a game I call Post Game, and I will list the video link to my new puppy Wicca doing Post Game on in the comments below. So just check it after this gets saved. The post game teaches them how to watch the environment, and I do it standing still because walking the environment is constantly changing, so it makes it much harder. I teach my dogs how to deal with their environment and not pull standing still. And then when they have the ability, the understanding of that alternate behavior, then I start teaching them to walk. You can also teach them to heel, which is relative to your body, and it's easier to define. You're supposed to be here next to me, not pulling to whatever you see. So hopefully these examples have given you some concepts to consider. Hopefully I've given you a much better idea of how to teach your dog what you want and to explain to your dog what you don't want. I challenge you today to think about your life with your dog. Are you unfairly correcting your dog? Is your dog getting yelled at? So many times I go in to do, I do puppy packages. So I go into people's houses and help them train their puppies. And just taking away situations where they're constantly getting frustrated and upset, using management, using training, and teaching the dog to respond to his name and get rewarded right away makes a huge difference on how everybody gets along and the peace in the house. So really think about, I try to assess every few months. I sit down and I look at, where am I yelling? Where am I bitching all the time? What can I do to change that? So my goal is always not to nag, not to bitch. You know, I'm normal, I'm human like everybody else. So I do, but I just try to not do it as a regular basis every day. So there's a better way. Okay, so I'm going to answer some questions now because I have a question I see. And so if you have any questions, make sure to put them down now because I'll stay on for a few more minutes. Okay, so Sheila, a red-bone coonhound. That's going to be a lovely dog. I love the noises that come out of those dogs. Can you say no or ah? Yes, I do. When my dog goes to dig in the garden, I'm like, nope, stop that. In that tone of voice. I am not yelling. I am not intimidating. I'm like, nope, stop that. And right now she freezes and looks at me. And as soon as I'm like, oh girl, now come out of the garden. Is it always work? No. When she's in full zoomy crazy, she looks at me and like, I'm going to dig harder. And then I walk towards her and go to grab her collar. You want to do, so check out the videos on my puppy group. I'll put the link in the comments, but you want to make sure your dog has a pile of collar grab game. So that means when you walk, what I want to create with that is when I walk towards my puppy, they don't run away from me. Because then you get keep away, and then that's a whole behavior you don't want to deal with. Yeah. So does that answer your question? Oh, digging. Hi, Candy. Digging. Yes, my bad little princess digs like crazy. So, how do I prevent digging? So you have to decide. So in my backyard, my dogs dig and I don't stress about it. I just go around every few weeks and fill in holes. It's just, I've let it go. In my front yard, there is no digging, but they're never out there unsupervised. So as soon as they're digging, I do exactly like I said. I'm like, nope. And either they look at me and I redirect them, or I start walking towards them and move them. And if they keep going back to digging, I would put them on leash and just not let them. Yeah, it's hard if you leave them out in the yard unsupervised, they're going to dig. Some solutions I've heard worked, I have not done with my own dogs. Give them a place to dig, make them a sand pit, bury stuff like food, cookies, dog cookies, stuff like that. So they are more likely to dig there. They seem to find favorite spots. So I would fill those spots with dirt and then put like chicken wire or mesh down on top of those spots and let the grass grow over that. So when they go to dig, they just can't and we'll move on to new spots. And there, if you've created a new sandbox for them, you can kind of go leave the stuff really close to the top, like put a dog cookie near the top. So when she digs, she finds it right away. Redirect them to that place if they go to dig in their old place. And then eventually there should be more value there. Yes, the holes are totally dangerous. If I haven't filled them, I put pylons in them. Even when I'm kicking the ball for the dogs in the backyard, the holes are terrifying me. So as soon as there's holes, I just have a stack of pylons in the backyard and I go walk around and I put pylons in the holes. So I know where they are and they know where they are and they don't trip in them. Terrifies me. We have snake holes, I think, or mouse holes in our front yard. And when Wicca was a baby, I was terrified she'd fall into one. Oh, my border collie, Jen. Hi, Jen. My border collie did the rock thing. He didn't pick up little rocks. He picked up rocks. Um, I taught him to carry a toy when he walked. So we walk at the fairgrounds and we will walk. We have a couple of different places we walk, but we walk along a creek and we walk at the fairgrounds. I think he started picking up rocks at the creek, which I didn't love, but I'd be like, nope, drop it. And he would. Because by the time he started doing it, he was old enough, he had cues. But then he started picking up rocks at the fairgrounds and discovered that under all light posts, there are rocks. So he started digging for the rocks. I got cheap toys. So I use moo tugs. They come from dairy farms. They're black things about this. So I can get a lot of them for not a lot of money. And he carries one of those. So anytime he drops it, I just tell him to go pick it up and he carries that on the walk. And now he pretty well carries it all the time and got rid of the rock problem completely, which was really good because he was wearing his teeth down. If you don't have access to the moo tugs, the other thing I was going to think of doing was I was going to buy a cheap garden hose and cut it into 1.5-foot sections. So that again, something that if they lose, you're not going to panic about. I don't know exactly where you walk. The other option would be to muzzle them, at least for a while, for a couple of months, so that she can't. I found with mine, I thought carrying a toy kept him calmer, so I wanted him to have the access to the toy and not be muzzled. Does that help, Jen? Okay. So that seems to be it for questions. If you need specific feedback or want to discuss your issues more, don't be afraid to send me a message. Reaching out for a quick chat is 100% free, and I can let you know what I think your next step should be. So that's all for now. Thank you so much for joining me this morning, and have a great weekend. And like always, we will be back next Friday at 10 a.m. Oh, good, Jen. I'm glad that helps. Yeah, the moo tugs for him was the best thing. Yeah, it helps him stay a little more sane because he's a little woo. Okay, have a great weekend, guys, and we will see you next week. As always, if you have subjects you'd like to see covered, please send me a comment. If not, I have great ideas. Thanks. Bye.